Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch League Report. I'm Brian.
I'm Ben.
And we are here to talk about the LA Gladiators, a team that maybe has more fans than the Los Angeles Rams.
Yeah, they have the same ownership, but I guess, after what many are calling a pretty dismal showing by the Rams.
Right.
I think the Gladiators would probably do a little bit better, hopefully.
I would say so. It would be hard not to. You know, if they show up,
Yeah.
they'll have already done better than the Rams. Their offense, anyways.
Yeah.
So, as you don't know, we're talking about the Super Bowl, but we're going to move on from that and go to the real sport, the Overwatch League. Ben, let's start talking about the coaching staff led by Decay.
Yes, Decay is the big name from the coaching staff. The other staff, like Tim was with them last season. Most of the other staff is new, but Decay is the most well-known, and he was with them last year, and this year he'll have to continue to shoulder a lot of the responsibility of the team, and try and help them break through the competition and knock them all over. And I'm sure he'll be making a lot of moves backstage. So,
do you want to elaborate a little bit on what you're alluding to?
Yeah, it's not as much fun if I explain the joke, Brian.
All right, well then let's force our way into the next topic by talking about the players. Starting off with Fissure-sized. He's a Canadian player, and he plays DPS, mating Widowmaker, McCree, Sombra, Soldier 76, Tracer. And he was on the World Cup team for Canada from 2016 to 2018. Ben, you said he's a star player. Tell me why.
He is. He's one of the best Western DPS players in the game. He's really, really good. He's considered one of the best Widowmaker players in the world. I believe, I'm not sure, because they did a Widowmaker one-on-one battle during the All-Star weekend last year. I think I fell asleep during. I think that he won that, though. If he didn't win that, he did very well in that Widowmaker duel competition they had. He's a very, very competent DPS player, and he's definitely, at this point, without Fissure there anymore, the star of the team. I think that he is probably the best player on the team. Even though he might not be, as we'll talk about later, I don't know what their salaries are, but he might not be the highest paid player at this point. But he's definitely going to be a big reason for their success if they end up doing well, if they end up replicating the success that they had, especially at the end of Season 1, especially in Stage 4. So, yeah, Fissure is great. I'm very happy that they were able to keep him on as much as the majority of their starting roster from last season.
All right, let's move on to Hydration, who is a Brazilian-American player. He is a DPS who mains Pharah, Doomfist, Genji, Sombra, and Lucio, and he played for the 2018 United States World Cup team, which, as we covered before, maybe not a great sign.
I mean, we're not gonna. I think we've beat that into the ground. I feel we've talked about the UK match as much as we possibly can. Mm-hmm. We do still have. Well,
someone needs to shoulder this load, Ben. So.
What have I done? Hydration's not shouldering anyone, luckily. But Hydration is, like Fissure, a really, really strong DPS player. So we can look at all three of the DPS players at this point on the Gladiators are all very high tier. They're all very widely versed in multiple heroes, particularly Fissure, and as we'll talk about later, Decay. And so I think that if there's any kind of DPS-based meta that evolves in Stage 1 or into Stage 2, that they're going to be in a very dominant position. I mean, they're going to be in a dominant position no matter what, in my opinion. I think they're one of the strongest teams in the league. But definitely their DPS line is really, really sick with Surefour, Hydration, Decay.
Awesome. Well, let's move on to Bishu. He is a South Korean player. His role is Flex. He mains Zarya and D.Va. Tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, so Bishu and Void were both kept on in the off-tank role, both mostly playing D.Va in the end of season 1, and will probably continue to play D.Va because it seems like despite the nerfs as the meta is settling again, that Goats is actually not dead. So
yeah, we may have rushed to judgment with our meme.
I mean, here's the thing. It's hard to not assume that Blizzard would have known what they were doing and like really efficiently killed off Goats, because obviously that was the intent of all of the patches they've done recently.
Right.
It seems like it's still going strong, though, at least for now.
Yeah.
So the real question basically for Bishu is going to be whether it's going to be Bishu or Void in that off-tank role. Last season, after Void was brought onto the team, they began splitting maps mostly, so maybe that's something they'll continue to do, is they'll just kind of play the maps they're more comfortable on, or put in, I think Bishu is probably a better communicator. That's why he saw probably a little bit more play, like maybe 60 to 75% of playtime in that role versus Void. So I think they're going to lean towards using Bishu in that role. But he definitely is not going to be an auto start the way that most of the other returning players from Season 1 are. But he is a very good off-tank player. I think that with Fissure off the team, because this is something that, this is kind of like the elephant in the room, right? The elephant in the room of Fissure's departure from the Gladiators, how his absence from the second and third match in the quarterfinal match that they played against the Spitfire in the Season 1 overall playoffs, by all metrics, may have been a dominating factor in why they lost those matches, because he showed up and played in match 1. They beat the Spitfire 3-0. He was benched either by for his own, either because of his own decision or because of the decision of the team.
Right.
And they lost 3-0 to the Spitfire in back-to-back matches. So if they had, like, obviously iRemix is really strong, but he was dropped from the team and he's in he's on like a crappy contenders team now.
Right.
So he's a great Overwatch player, but he wasn't Fissure. So like if they had Fissure instead of iRemix in those second, third matches, second match, maybe they wouldn't even need to have gone to a third match, then we might have a different Season 1 Overwatch League champion, because the Spitfire may have been knocked out in the quarterfinals. And I think that really shows what this team can accomplish when they have a united front. So really the story of this season is, can they replace Fissure, and can they have a cohesive unit where there's not all of this organization drama? Because the main crux of Fissure leaving seemed to be that he didn't gel well with the Western players. There was talk of him not wanting or not thinking that the other tank players, those tank players being Bishu and Void, were putting in the same level of effort and work that he was putting in, and so he was frustrated. It's interesting because those two things are kind of contradictory to each other, because we see the organization or not necessarily the organization, but we see speculation from people close to the team that he was having issue with gelling with the Western players. But hearing from Fissure himself, he was criticizing the work ethic of the two other Korean players in the team. So it's very strange, and it's kind of like putting the pieces together in like kind of a she said situation of whether like Fissure was the primary issue of the drama, or whether the team organization was the issue, whether there was a work ethic situation that wasn't being addressed properly. It seemed like the Bishu and Void were both performing up to snuff. That's kind of where we are right there. And the reason I think that Bishu is going to be the more likely player that they put in is because not only did he already see more play last season, but I think that a lot of the reason that Void was prioritized on the maps that he was because of the way he synergized with Fissure. There is going to be a counter argument to that we'll probably talk about later when we get to Void and then some of the newer players. But I'll stick with that for now.
Alrighty, so let's move on to Shaz. He is the Finnish support player who mains Ana, Zenyatta, Soldier 76, Tracer, and Somber, and he was on the 2018 World Cup team. Tell me a little bit about him.
Shaz and Big Goose are their Finnish support duo, and they're adding a third player on, making the Finnish support trio. So Shaz is a very strong support player. I think that there isn't really a weak spot on this team. After they kind of got their crap together in stage 3 and they brought on Void, I think that there was a lot more like the team kind of like hit their groove and they started all performing up like at a higher level. I think that Shaz and Big Goose are both very strong players, and so we can kind of do a transition as well here and talk about them both.
Let's talk a little bit about Big Goose, who, as you
said, because they're kind of like a package deal.
Right. So as you said, he's also a Finnish player. He's also support, and he mains Lucio, Mercy, and Shorbjorn, and he was also on that Finnish 2018 World Cup team.
Yep. So they've played a lot together. They have a lot of existing synergy. They're both Finnish players. They both come from a similar scene. So like they both performed really well as this like support duo last season. We're going to see a third support player come on. It's interesting whether or not Shaz gets rotated out in certain situations because he was pretty much playing pretty consistently throughout the entire first season. So that's going to be like the big question mark, because Big Goose like has a spot, like the main support, the healer role. He has filled. There's nobody really to compete with him in that slot. Shaz now has some competition with a really strong flex support player coming in. So we're going to see whether or not there's going to be some kind of like Finnish love triangle of support players. It's going to have we're going to be like who's Big Goose gonna have some chemistry with here.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that next Finnish support player. His name is Ripa. He mains Zenyatta and Moira, and he was not on the World Cup team. So tell me a little bit about him. He also has
but he's coming
the Overwatch League thing.
But he is coming from Giganti, which is I got a lot of crap for saying that for using the term one of the 2 or 3 best European contenders teams,
right.
Talking about Eagle Gaming, but I will use that term again because I stand by the fact that it's accurate. I don't like talking in absolutes. Right.
No.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes, right?
Right. Yeah. We're not Siths.
Yeah, that's just true. Unlike some people.
Unlike some people in the comment section, they're all full of Siths. All right, but yeah, tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, so he's coming from Giganti. Was when he was with them, one of the 2 or 3 best contenders teams in EU. They didn't win EU contenders with him, but they got close, and they got close twice. They were in season 1. I think they had the best record, and then they got knocked out in the semis. And then they lost a really close match in season 2. Like they were just they're like the team that like should be doing well and should be winning, and they always get super close and they fall real short and they like kind of choke.
The Dallas Cowboys of the contender scene.
And they're better than the Cowboys.
Ooh, take that, Tony Romo.
But yeah, so and Ripa was a really strong player on that team. He was a fantastic Zenyatta player. Obviously, that's a big deal right now, especially with goats and the Zen goat style potentially still being meta apparently for some reason. So he's going to fill that role potentially. It's going to be whether or not he sees play over Shaz in that role, because Shaz is also a very strong Zenyatta player, and he has the experience in the Overwatch League, and he has the built-in synergy with Big Goose. So it's going to be on Ripa to kind of prove his worth as a potential, probably not replacement, but consistent sub, where he's going to maybe come in similar to a Bishu and Void situation, or maybe like a 75-25 split. So I'm looking forward. I think the Gladiators made 3/4 really strong pickups, and I think they, unlike some other teams where the pickups they made were like questionable or like didn't really, like they were kind of like head scratchers as to like what they were trying to do with the pickups. I think all 3 of their signings plus their 2-way contract with Panker make a lot of sense.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Void, the South Korean flex player who mains Zarya and Diva.
Yes, I mentioned with Void a little earlier, a little bit when I was talking about Bishu. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Void can kind of pick up some slack and fill in the role in maps where Bishu is less comfortable. The real interesting thing is that I assume the next 2 players we're going to talk about are coming in from a little team called Kongdoo Panthera, and they used to play with Void when Void was on Kongdoo Panthera before he was signed by the Gladiators. They didn't play in Contenders. I believe he was signed before Contenders Season 1, but they played together before Contenders was a thing in all of the other pre-Contenders leagues, the Apexes and the all of that, the Nexus Cup and all that. So
yeah. All right, well, let's put the other 2 players together. So we have Decay. He is a South Korean DPS player who mains Tracer, Widowmaker, Genji, and Zarya. And as you said, he's coming over from the Kongdoo Panthera. And then we have Rar, who is a tank, also from South Korea, and mains Winston, Reinhardt, and also from the Panthera.
Yeah, so we talked about the Shanghai Dragons signing. They signed 4 of the main 6 starting players from Kongdoo Panthera. The other 2, yeah.
Ooh, I don't know if they're going to be good. That Contenders team is going to be good next year.
They were in season 3. They were okay.
Yeah.
They did pretty good, I've heard.
For being completely gutted.
Huh?
For being completely gutted from the pros.
Yeah. I mean, they were no runaway who were completely gutted and then still ran away.
Right. There's only one runaway though.
Yeah. But they made it to they lost. Well, they were not great. They had a bad. We're not here to talk about new Kongdoo Panthera. Their quarterfinals match against Runaway was really bad, but they played okay during the actual season itself.
All right, well, tell me about the two players.
All right, so you kind of grouped them together, but I think that they're both big enough names that they're worth talking about individually, especially because Roar is going to be a starter 100%,
right?
Because he is the Fissure replacement.
Okay.
But we can start with Decay. I mentioned earlier I made a little joke about salary, and supposedly this is all rumor, right? So don't blast me for saying rumor as fact.
Okay,
right?
you will get blasted no matter what. So
yeah,
it's fine.
I'm trying to get ahead of it. At least I want to make sure that I want to make sure that everything I say is very well thought out, and I'm not saying wrong things here anymore.
Right.
I'm trying to grow as a person, Ryan.
Okay.
But supposedly Decay his contract was bought out for the great number of $300,000.
Oh boy!
So that would make him one of the highest paid Overwatch players in the league.
There.
300,000 there, yeah. It's only 2 commas, but
right?
he could be. He's moving towards he's on his way to the third.
Yep.
Yeah, that's only dos comas, but yeah. So there's a lot of hype coming in for Decay. There was a huge bidding war for his contract. The Valiant were involved in it. I think they capped it off at $250,000, according to rumors. And the Gladiators were like, we'll take him for $300,000 a year.
What do you think is going to be worth that?
I think that Decay is an incredibly strong player. He's one of the best players.
I got you, homie.
Come out of contenders that wasn't in season 1, in my opinion.
I think he's gonna
when we talk about versatile TPS players, Surefour is a versatile TPS player, even though he's best known for his Widowmaker play. Decay is the definition of versatility. He can play every DPS hero in the entire game at a very, very high level. He doesn't have really weak spots. He's like a Swiss Army knife, and it's interesting that they're bringing him on when they already have 2 incredibly strong DPS players. But we talked about other teams potentially trying to support a shifting meta towards heavier DPS involvement. So maybe that's something that they're looking into. Also, because Roar is going to be starting, we might just see Decay taking over the hydration spot, even though his hero pool more closely lines up with Surefour's. So it would be interesting to see if he can kind of play these other DPS heroes like Pharah at kind of an extraordinary level. So yeah, I'm very excited. There's a lot of hype for Decay, and I hope he lives up to it, because that'll be really, really bad if he does not. No pressure.
No pressure. And let there be a lesson to all those parents out there who say that you can't make a living from video games.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people are, but $300,000, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Yeah.
So Roar is, when we look at what they're trying to do with Roar, is they're replacing Fissure. That's let's put all the cards on the table. That's what they're doing.
Right.
And I think that for what they need in order to be a competent unit, Roar fills that role fine. He's very strong on Rhine. He is pretty good on Winston, especially if Ryan is going to continue to be the primary main tank hero of choice. I think that they're going to be fine. Roar is great. He has existing synergy working with Void from back in the earlier days of Kongdoo Panthera. He has synergy working with Ripa or with Decay. I mean, let's see. Now I'm gonna get blasted because I misspoke. All right. He has existing synergy working with Decay. They spent years together on Kongdoo Panthera. And if Decay is going to fill in that secondary DPS role, then we might have like certain situations where half of their starting roster is like old Kongdoo Panthera players, which is, I think that's fine.
Yeah.
As long as there's no organizational issues with their organization treating Western Korean players differently or anything like that.
Right. All right, closing out the roster, let's go to Panker, who is from South Korea. He is a tank, and he mains Reinhardt and Winston. And
wow, it's interesting.
He came up from the Gladiators Legion, and before that he was on the Toronto Esports.
Yes. Well, he is on Gladiators Legion right now, technically, still with the 2-way contract. It's interesting that that Wrecking Ball wasn't mentioned. That's like his most like iconic hero from season 2, especially of Contenders. So he's one of the big players in Contenders that kind of pushed Wrecking Ball as like a viable hero to be played. He's very good on. I think that there's a handful of maps where he plays Wrecking Ball really high, like at a really high level. He does well with Wrecking Ball on Junkertown, Kings Row, a lot of the like hybrid and what's the word? Oh my god, escort maps.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of just like setting up a minefield around your payload, or just like, you know, planting the hamster right on top of the payload and just like riding it, spinning around, riding it to victory. But his mechanics, especially on just like being a very mobile Wrecking Ball player, just like zooming around, knowing the map so well that he can just like change directions, and like has such a great map awareness that he's like able to pull off these like multi-kill streaks, even in situations where he's not like where he's not like set up to do so. I think the Panker is super strong. We talked about Corey previously from Gladiators Legion. We're going to be talking about Blase. I think that both of them are extremely strong players from Legion, but I think that Panker is definitely the star on that team. And it's very good that he's getting the recognition I think that he deserves. It's probably not super likely that he sees a ton of play because Legion is still strong. They're going to want to keep him on that roster probably going forward. And they have Roar, who is a very consistent and solid player in that role already. So we might see him come up and play like a match or two. But definitely at least the fact that like his name is out there, he's connected, he's on this 2-way contract. I think that's a big step in the right direction. We might see him in a full-blown starting position on this team come Season 3, for instance.
Awesome. And is there anything else you want to add before we sign off for this episode?
No, I know that thinking back, I think my like the rankings I've said for a lot of teams, I don't think there's been a lot of actual internal consistency. Like if you go through and like actually write down all the things that I've said about ranking teams,
right?
Like I don't think there's actually any way to like this is just things I've said off the top of my head. It's not really like I have a ranking,
right?
So I think the Gladiators could be one of the best teams in Overwatch League this season. I think that they have pretty much everything that a team could possibly want. They made the right pickups. Like I said before, not many teams, in my opinion, made the exact right pickups they needed to make. Yeah, I'm very excited to see what they do. If they end up winning the league, then it's no surprise for me.
All right, so for Ben and Brian, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe. And if this was not enough, we have a lot of other episodes. We have a lot of other sketches, gameplays. We stream all the time. Make sure you check it out. YouTube.com/whatgoodeverything if you're watching on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, then check out our Twitch at twitch.tv/whatgoodeverything. Thank you guys for watching, and have a great day.